I met Emily about 5 years ago. She was the kind of woman who, on the surface, seemed perfect, beautiful, sharp, a little sassy, but charming enough to hide her real bitchiness behind a layer of sweet talk. I was smitten from the start. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only guy in the room, and for a while everything seemed perfect. We got married after about 2 years of dating, thinking we were the real deal. Looking back now, I can see the cracks. Little things, you know. She'd get short if I didn't text her first thing in the morning, and she'd blow up if I didn't reply to her late-night texts within seconds. But I shrugged it off because I loved her. I thought maybe she just needed reassurance. I was busy with work, trying to get ahead, and I figured she was just anxious about whether I still cared. Then, about a month ago, I started noticing some weird shit. My stuff was moving around more than usual. My phone kept getting these strange notifications I wasn't supposed to see. Emily started acting even more bitchy, snapping at me for no reason, giving me cold shoulders. I caught her lying about small things, like where she'd been or who she was with. Nothing too obvious until I found that damn shirt in the laundry one day, a shirt of a guy I didn't recognize. I thought she'd just borrowed it from a friend or something, but I felt that familiar twinge of suspicion. The real breaking point came when I found out she'd been sneaking around with someone. I didn't want to believe it at first. I kept telling myself maybe I was just overthinking, maybe it was just work stress or her period or whatever. But then I overheard a phone call she forgot to hide. I was in the living room and I heard her talking, loud enough to catch every word. She was with someone. I couldn't make out the entire conversation, but I heard her say his name, Jake, and then she kept giggling and saying she missed him. My stomach dropped. I didn't even realize I was standing there with my jaw on the floor until she looked up and saw me. Her face went pale, and she tried to cover it up, but she was already caught. That moment I knew everything was over. She lied about being with her friends, about her nights out, about everything. She kept insisting she was just hanging out or working late, but I knew better. I saw the way she looked at him in those sneaky texts, the way she'd slip her phone into her purse the second I even looked in her direction. That was the moment I realized I'd been blind. All those signs, all the little lies, they weren't just her being bitchy or stressed. They were her hiding something much darker. I felt like my world was crashing down. I didn't even fully process what I was feeling, anger, betrayal, shame, and I couldn't even confront her right then because I just stood there frozen. I wanted to scream, to yell, to break something. But I didn't. Not yet. I just looked at her and knew that everything I thought we had was a lie. That was the day my whole life changed in an instant. After that first brutal shock, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying everything I overheard, trying to make sense of it all. I felt numb but also furious. How could she do this? After everything we built. I mean, I helped her through her career, listened to her bitch about her friends, and even gave her the benefit of the doubt when she said she was just tired or stressed. Turns out she'd been cheating on me with my own damn ex-cellmate, Mark. Yeah, Mark. The guy I helped find a job months ago. I swear, my blood boiled just thinking about it. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I decided I'd get some facts straight before I confronted her. I started digging, sneaking around her phone when she wasn't looking, checking her social media and reviewing her text history. It was all there, flirty messages, a few naughty pictures, and plenty of "I miss you" texts. I found out that they'd been seeing each other for at least a couple of months. She convinced herself I never found out, that I was too busy with work or too clueless to notice. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around, lying, and probably having sex with him. The worst part was her attitude when I finally did confront her. She played innocent at first, acting all high and mighty, like I was overreacting or imagining things. "You're just paranoid," she said with that bitchy little smile. "Mark and I were just friends, I don't know what you're talking about." Yeah, right, I saw the way she looked at him, hot, desperate, like she needed him more than I ever meant to give her. When I pressed her harder, she snapped. Started yelling, calling me crazy, saying I was paranoid and jealous, like that was some kind of excuse. Her excuses were classic. "It's just sex," she spat. "It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting like always." That's when I realized she didn't give a damn about how much she was hurting me. To her, I was just some guy she could use and toss aside. I felt this huge mixture of sadness and anger, like I'd been punched in the gut 100 times over. How could she betray me like this? I couldn't even look at her the same way after that. I felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer, and I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs or how I let her get away with this for so long. The trust was completely shattered. I wanted to believe I could forgive her, that maybe it was a mistake she'd regret, but deep down, I knew this was too much. She lied so easily, so convincingly, that I doubted anything she said anymore. I was furious, heartbroken, and honestly a little scared. I'd always believed I was the stable one in this relationship, but now I felt like I'd lost myself in all this mess. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to process what to do next. I was just about to call her out on everything, to lay it all bare, when I found myself thinking about revenge. Not in a crazy way, but in a way that made sense to me in that moment. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, cheat behind my back, then act like it was nothing. No, I had to do something. I had to make her feel the pain she'd inflicted on me. That's when I started planning my comeback, how I'd confront her, how I'd show her I wasn't some pathetic fool she could lie to. I didn't tell anyone at first, just kept everything bottled up. I knew if I said anything, it'd all go to hell fast, so I played it cool on the outside but plotted my moves inside. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined. She thought she could get away with cheating on me with her bitchy little attitude and her lies. Well, I was about to turn the tables. I just didn't know how yet. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I kept my cool outwardly, but inside I was boiling. I couldn't believe she thought she could get away with it. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of her texts, recordings of her calls, anything that would hold up if I decided to confront her publicly or even just for myself. I wanted her to realize that I wasn't some fool who'd accept being lied to forever. One night, I came home early from work just to catch her off guard. I knew her pattern, that she'd probably meet Mark again. Sure enough, I saw her car parked outside, her phone in her hand, giggling at something. I waited in the shadows for a few minutes until she slipped inside, trying not to look suspicious. I followed her into the house, all the adrenaline rushing through me. I kept my voice steady when I finally called her out, standing in the doorway. "Who the hell is Mark, Emily?" I asked, my voice low but firm. She froze, her eyes wide with that bitchy defensive look she always had when caught in a lie. "What are you talking about? Mark's just a friend, I told you that." "Yeah, I overheard your call," I shot back. "You think I'm stupid? I know you've been sleeping with him. How long has this been going on, huh? 2 months, 3. She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're crazy, you have no proof, I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and played the recordings I'd made earlier, her voice laughing, saying she missed him, her text that I'd screenshotted, her denying everything just a second ago. It was all there. Her face paled and she started to squirm. Her lies crumbled in an instant. "Look, I was just tired," she spat, trying to cover her tracks. "It's not a big deal. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear." "You swear?" I interrupted, voice rising. "You think that's gonna make me forget all the lies, Emily? You cheated on me with my own ex-cellmate and you expect me to just brush it off? I helped you find that job, I trusted you, and you were out there fucking someone else behind my back." She snapped at me, her voice full of venom. "You're just jealous. Mark's better in bed anyway. You think you're so perfect, but you're not. You're boring, and I needed someone who could keep up with me." That cut deep. My blood ran cold. I felt like I'd been punched again in the chest. That's when it hit me, this bitch had no shame, no respect. She was willing to lie, cheat, and even insult me just to justify her affair. For a moment I just stared at her, trying to process how far she'd gone. The anger was almost uncontrollable, but I kept my voice somewhat steady. "You're done, Emily. I want you out of this house. Pack your shit. I don't want to see or hear from you again." She snarled and started crying, but not because she was sorry. No, it was just more manipulation. "You'll regret this. I was just having some fun. You're so insecure." Insecure, I was furious, but deep down I also felt a strange relief. This nightmare was finally over. I could breathe again, away from her lies, her bitchiness, and her betrayal. I knew then I had to act fast to make sure she didn't try to worm her way back into my life or ruin me further with her manipulations. That night I made up my mind. I'd do it her way, cut her out completely. No more pretending, no more excuses. I'd show her that her actions had consequences. I wasn't going to be some sucker who got played. She had to face the fallout. And I knew I'd never forget what she'd done. It was a cold, brutal lesson, but I'd learned from it. No matter how broken I felt, I was going to take control of my life again. After she left that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Honestly, I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. Finding out she'd been screwing around with Mark, my ex-cellmate, who I genuinely helped find a job because I believed in giving people a second chance, that made everything worse. It wasn't just the betrayal of my wife. It was the fact that she had no respect for what I did for her, or for me, period. I spent the next few days trying to piece myself back together, but the anger simmered just beneath the surface. I kept replaying the moments, the lies, the sneaking around. I couldn't get over the feeling of being played, used. My trust, which I'd always thought was one of my strengths, had been shattered completely. Every time I looked at her empty side of the bed or saw her number in my call log, I felt this surge of bitterness. I told myself I'd handle it, but honestly, I didn't know what it meant anymore. I decided to do some research online, of course. I needed to understand how to deal with this kind of betrayal. I read countless stories, some about revenge, others about moving on. I wasn't interested in petty revenge, but I was definitely thinking about making her regret what she did. If she thought she could just lie and cheat her way out of this, I was going to make damn sure she paid for it. I wanted her to see that I wasn't a fool. I also started planning my next move carefully. I didn't want to act impulsively and ruin what little dignity I had left. One thing I knew for sure, I couldn't stay in the house with her, not after what I knew. So I started looking into apartments. I wanted to get out, to get away from the toxic environment she created. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me, not anymore. I also decided I'd tell some friends what was happening, mostly to have someone to talk to, but I was careful about who I confided in. I didn't want her to find out I was exposing her or that I was plotting some kind of revenge. Meanwhile, Emily was still acting like the victim, of course. She kept texting me, begging for another chance, crying fake tears, saying she was sorry, that she'd change. I couldn't believe her. The audacity. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she was just lost, that she didn't know what she was doing. But I saw through her bullshit now. All I could think about was the way she looked at Mark, hot, panting, needy. That image stuck with me. One thing I refused to do was fall into her trap again. I knew that if I let her manipulate me, I'd end up where I started, weak, betrayed, and broken. I decided to confront her directly, but on my terms. I wanted her to feel what she'd done to me. That meant planning a confrontation that would sting, that would make her realize I wasn't some pushover anymore. I wanted her to regret everything, to understand that she'd lost the best thing she ever had. So I set the plan in motion. I scheduled a meeting with her, just face to face. I told her I had something to say and I wanted her to be there. I told her I wasn't coming back, that I had already made arrangements to move out, and that I wanted her to know exactly how I felt. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, at least not at first, but I made sure she knew her lies and her betrayal had consequences. I went in with all the evidence laid out, ready to show her she was done, that her manipulations wouldn't save her. When she arrived, she looked smug, like she already knew she'd get what she wanted. But the second I revealed everything, my recordings, her messages, the fact that I knew she'd been cheating behind my back, I saw her facade crack. Her face turned white and she started stammering. She tried to deny it again, but the evidence was irrefutable. I was calm, cold, and firm. I told her I was leaving, that I wanted her gone, that I never wanted to see her again. I didn't shout or call her names. I just said what I needed to say, making her realize that her lies and her bitchy attitude hadn't protected her. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of empowerment. I was finally taking control. She could lie all she wanted, but the truth was out and I was done. I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that she'd pushed me to the edge, and I took that as a victory. I walked out, knowing I'd finally broken free from her toxic hold. The days after that confrontation were some of the hardest I've ever experienced, but also some of the most clarifying. Moving out was a relief I hadn't realized I desperately needed. I found a small apartment nearby, one that was quiet and affordable, just enough for me to breathe again. The silence there was a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind, but it helped me start sorting through everything, what I'd lost, what I'd gained, and what I still needed to do. Emily, of course, kept trying to reach me, texts, calls, even pleading face to face. She played the victim, crying she'd been so lost, that she didn't mean to hurt me, and that it was just sex. Honestly, her words barely registered anymore. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could just lie her way out of everything. I didn't reply to her messages anymore. I refused to give her the satisfaction of knowing she still had some control over me, but she didn't give up easily. One afternoon, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, furious and bitchy as ever. She went on and on about how I was throwing away something good, how she was sorry, and how she'd do anything to fix this. I just looked at her and said, "It's over, Emily. I do want to hear your lies anymore. You chose to betray me, and I'm done playing the fool." Her eyes flickered with anger, but I was beyond caring. I'd already made my decision. Now I had to figure out what came next. Part of me wanted revenge, pure and simple. I wanted her to feel the pain she'd inflicted on me, to see her lose everything just like I felt I was losing. But another part of me knew I had to be smarter about this. I didn't want to destroy her entirely, just make her regret what she'd done. So I started plotting my next moves carefully. The first thing I did was clean up my life. I cut off all financial ties, changed my passwords, and made sure she couldn't mess with my bank accounts or social media. I contacted a lawyer just to understand my options, and I started gathering everything I could, proof of her affair, messages, photos. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me or try to worm her way back into my life. This was the end of her control. I also reached out to a few close friends, people I trusted, to vent and get some support. Their reactions, honestly, were a mix of shock and anger on my behalf. They couldn't believe Emily had been lying and cheating for so long. Some of them told me I was brave to cut her out, that I deserved better. That made me feel a little better about my decision. I'd spent so much time second-guessing myself, but hearing that I'd done the right thing helped solidify my resolve. One thing I kept thinking about was how much Emily truly didn't care about me. All that bitchiness, all those lies, she wasn't just cheating, she was disrespecting everything we had. I realized I'd been much more forgiving than I should have been, trying to see the good in her, but there was no good left, just a selfish, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. So now I'm at this point where I'm slowly rebuilding my life. The pain still lingers, no doubt, but I also feel a strange sense of liberation. I'm not her punching bag anymore. I'm not the fool who trusted someone so blatantly unworthy. I've learned some hard lessons. Trust is something you earn, and betrayal cuts deep. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I don't need a woman like Emily in my life, not after what she did. My advice: if you're going through something similar, don't ignore the signs. Don't be naive about who you think someone is. And when you catch them, confront them, stand your ground, and don't let them manipulate you into staying. It's going to hurt, but you'll come out on the other side stronger. Trust me. And don't forget, you deserve respect, loyalty, and someone who truly cares about you. I finally understand that now. Looking back, I realize that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I felt broken, like everything I believed in had been shattered beyond repair. But over time, I've found a strange sense of clarity. Betrayal hurts like hell, but it also strips away the bullshit and forces you to see things for what they really are. Emily's betrayal was a wake-up call. I learned to trust my instincts more, to value myself, and to understand that some people will never change, no matter how much you want them to. Now, I'm rebuilding my life. I've started dating again, cautiously, but I'm more aware of what I want and what I won't tolerate. I don't hold any resentment towards her anymore. I just feel sorry for her, honestly. She's the kind of person who screws over others and then acts innocent, her own worst enemy. I hope she's miserable because she deserves to be. The biggest lesson I've learned is that no matter how much you love someone, betrayal can destroy everything in an instant. It's painful, yes, but it also opens your eyes. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let someone manipulate you into staying when they're only going to lie and cheat. And most importantly, don't lose sight of your worth, because if you do, someone else will. I don't regret what I did. Cutting her out was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't easy, and I still have nights where I feel the sting of everything she took from me. But I know now that I'm stronger than her lies, and I refuse to be a victim anymore. I've learned to stand up, face the pain, and move forward. And I will. For anyone else going through this, stick to your guns, trust your gut. If someone shows you they're capable of betrayal, believe it. Don't make excuses or wait for them to change. Because sometimes the only way to truly heal is to walk away and start fresh. That's what I did, and honestly, I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. Life goes on, and I've learned that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you really value.